Now, this is not the publication order. This is chronological. To be fair, there's only one prequel. Um, one of the biggest shames is that Robert Jordan died before he had a chance to do um, the other prequel series. He originally was going to do three prequels. We only got one before he passed, unfortunately. However, it's really fucking good, so it's all right. So this is New Spring. Now, normally I would say read things in chronological order. I'm just that kind of guy. This is like the one time that I truly believe this one is best read later in the series in publication order. If we go over to the wiki, right, Moraine Domadred, she is, as I said, she's the Gandalf of this story. Um, Part of her allure in the first couple of books is that she's very mysterious, very um, cryptic, I guess is the word. And we do kind of learn a little more about her as the story goes on, and we love her or hate her, I guess. She's a very complex character, very complex. Well, this book, um, New Spring, takes place uh, 20 years before the events of the main book, and it's all about her when she's a young girl. Well, younger, she's like 20. Um, so we see a very different side of her, a very human side of her. Uh, so if you were to read this first, it kind of erases the mystery of who this character is. So I actually recommend reading the if you're going to. I always recommend reading this one later in the series, perhaps after like the fifth book or so, because that's when he wrote the book. I actually recommend doing it later, which I normally don't do. I normally like chronological. That's why I'm reading the like the Tom Clancy series right now, and it works better over there. But if this is one of those times you want to do publication order. There's such yeah exactly. There's such a sense of discovery with her. Also, this book is the shortest of the franchise. It's very short. Um, Basically, now I'm going to start having to introduce some things. Um, Moraine is what we call an Aes Sedai, which is, for lack of a better term, a magician. She's a wizard. She's a whatever the fuck sorceress. Um, there's an order, the Aes Sedai. Uh, Basically, she belongs to what is called the Blue Aja, which is think of houses in Hogwarts, very similar to that, where each color, right, the Aja is just blue Aja, red Aja, gray Aja, right? They all have a color, and each of them kind of follow a certain character archetype. So the Blue Aja is very they believe in the how do I they believe in like desperate causes, right? Fate of the world type shit, fighting the dark one in kind of clandestine ways, very secret keeper. So most Blue Aja sisters, also I gotta mention, all Aes Sedai are women. That is a huge part of this story, is that they are women. Um, it is an all-woman order, uh, and I'll get more in depth later about men who can channel the one power, which is magic. But that's not super important in this book. This book is all about Moraine, and she's at the Tower of Tarvalin, which is where they do all their magic shit. Um, Basically, she is they call it an accepted, which is like one step below a full sister, a full Aes Sedai. She's kind of in training, but she's not exactly a rookie either. She knows what she's doing for the most part, and it is, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it, it's a very cute book. Um, we get to see her as, like I said, a girl. We get to see her having fun and not taking things terribly seriously. But we learn why she is the way she is in the rest of the series. It's a very, very nice window into who she is as a person. And I think it would do her character a disservice if in the other books in the main series, if Robert Jordan would have done like a really weird out of character, like, oh, this is why Moraine feels like this. It just would have been weird. So this book really, really cements that, like who she is deep down, because you see some of it kind of peek through in the other books, but it's very quickly tamped down by her demeanor, right? So part of being an Aes Sedai is that you have to be kind of calm and collected at all times. All times. You can never, not can't show emotion, but it's kind of frowned upon, right? If you're an Aes Sedai and you get flustered or excited about something, it's kind of one of those professional faux pas, you know? So you don't really want to do that. So she's very, like I said, cryptic. So it kind of, Suave actually kind of put it correctly. It's kind of a coming of age magical girl story, which on its surface sounds kind of fucking stupid. If that's how you pitched it to me, I would have been like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not reading that. But it's actually phenomenal. It is a really good bit of world building. The only thing is, and another reason why I say don't read it first, there's a lot of things that the Aes Sedai do that's very strange. There's a lot of things that they do. There's a lot of rituals. There's a lot of really weird shit that is kind of drip fed to you for the first couple of books in the series. Well, when you read this book, it doesn't drip feed you shit. It just assumes that you know what this is because you read the other books. So they're like, yeah, we're going to do the rite of acceptance. We're going to have you go through the ter'angreal to become an Aes Sedai. And you're like, what the fuck is a ter'angreal? What is happening? What the fuck? So it's complicated, right? It's a very, he doesn't waste any time with exposition in this book. He just assumes you know the fucking world. Which, thank God, I did not read this shit in chronological order. I read this book originally when it was intended to be read, in publication order. So I lucked out on that one because it would have been really weird. And yeah, this one would be insanely hard to follow if you didn't know what this series was about. Now, that's kind of the synopsis, right? Is she's at the tower, she's trying to become a full sister, and that's about it. Now, while she is there, she learns about the prophecy. Right now, what is this prophecy? I've been kind of teasing. This prophecy is about the dragon reborn. Now, we'll get more into this in the other books, but basically, there was this guy thousands of years ago, about 3,000 to be exact, who Luz Theron Telamon, he was known as the Dragon. And part of the prophecy, called the Koreathon cycle, is that he's going to come back reborn, and that's going to happen right about now. And sure enough, it happens. At least they, the women in Tar Valon, they think it has happened. So she's on a kind of secret, clandestine quest to find the identity of the boy who was just reborn as the dragon. Now, she doesn't find him until literally 20 years later in the first book. But it's kind of a really fun how she got started on her journey, and it's really interesting. There's a lot of scenes, and it almost feels like kind of fan servicey, right? Where there's certain scenes in this book where she had kind of briefly mentioned it in one of the other books, where it's like, oh yeah, one time I did this, and never fucking elaborates on it. And then, the reader is like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. What the fuck does she mean? And then in this book, it's when it happens. She does it. And it's like, oh, dude, I remember when she talked about that. That's so funny. It's so good to hear her talk about that. It's really fun. So the highlights, I think those are a lot of the highlights. The first, act of this book is actually kind of weird. So it's following only two characters. So Moraine has what we call a warder, whose name is Lan Mandragoran, who, how else do I say this? Daddy. Yeah, daddy, absolute daddy shit. Um, yeah, he's one of those. Um, so Landman Dragrin is also another very complex character. Love him to that. Easily in my top five. In my top five for the whole series. Very doom and gloom. Very. He's kind of Robert Jordan's Aragorn, but if Aragorn no longer had a kingdom to return to, right? That's Landman Dragrin. So very sad boy, but he's also like the best swordsman on the fucking planet. He's really cool. So Aes Sedai have this thing called a warder. A warder is basically now it's not written in stone that it's always a man, but it always is a man. Kind of one of those things. So basically, when you become a sister, when you ascend to the ranks of an Aes Sedai, you can magically bond a man, well, anyone, to you. And these people are typically gifted with magical artifacts to make them better fighters. They're also just usually people of great skill and talent for fighting to protect their Aes Sedai. So that's the real quick rundown of Landman Dragrin. But basically, he's a younger guy in this book. Basically, it's how they meet and how she ends up bonding him as a warder. And again, a lot of the really big highlights of this book are actually not Moraine, it's Lan. Because Lan is such a cool fucking character. Just so fucking cool. And he so we get a lot of those really fun, cute scenes of, oh, remember that one time, I threw you in the pond kind of shit. And that was in like book 3 or 4, right? Them like reminiscing or whatever. And then in this book, we get to see that scene, and it's so sweet and so fun. But then also, one thing I like about this book is that while it does have themes that continue on into the rest of the series, so like I said, her search for the Dragon Reborn and all this shit, it is a self-contained book. The climax of this book has nothing to do with the rest of the series. It's just like a political play up north in one of the kingdoms. That's it. And it just so happens to incorporate these two characters who get kind of swept up in it while she is searching for this kid. So, that's how it kind of fits into the rest of the series. It does have some low point. It has like one low point that comes to mind. So it's definitely not perfect. I don't even know if it's amazing, but it is great. It is a great book. Essential reading for the series. I would never want to skip this book, but it is. There's a couple of scenes, like if you don't like, and there are some people, I am kind of one of them sometimes, where you don't like listening to the inner politics of the Aes Sedai and all this like bickering that these women do with each other behind the scenes while they're kind of low-key ruling the world, then parts of this book are kind of fucking annoying. But then the parts where she like leaves the tower to go pursue her not her dream, but this quest that she's been given, those parts are fucking phenomenal. And that's like the second and third of the book, right? The last 60%, which is still a sizable chunk of the book, is really good. But there's like that first part where you're like, fuck, bro, I don't care about this. This is stupid. Just go back to Lan. Because then when it cuts to Lan, he's like commanding armies, he's killing shit. He's basically a fucking Wild West character. He's so fucking cool. So like whenever it goes to Moraine while she's still at the tower, you're like, bro, I don't fucking care. I do not care about this shit. It's cool that I get to see her and get to learn more about her, but like, bro, I just want some other shit to happen right now. So I am going to give. I was trying to click on it on the wrong one. I am going to give New Spring a great. I think it's a great book. At no point did I ever consider dropping it or anything like that. Like, it is a really good book. There's like a pretty decent slowdown in the beginning, and the problem is that slowdown is kind of essential. It is really important that they do it. It does kind of build the story, but it's kind of boring. The politics sound right up my honestly, Banana. If you like political stuff, but through the lens of like fantasy and like magic and shit, the series does have a shit ton of that, and it is really good. It is fun. I actually do really like that sometimes, but this book just leans a lot into it. Think of the Aes Sedai, the Tarvalin people, right? The magic people of this world. It's kind of like they're kind of like the Pope and the Catholic Church back in the Middle Ages, where it's like, yeah, they're like they don't literally control everything, but like if the Pope says don't do something to the king, he would be behooved to not do the thing. Honestly, that's my favorite way of thinking of the Aes Sedai is literally the papacy, literally the Amelin seat being the Pope, respected across the land, whether or not that nation is Christian. You know, everyone respects the Pope, right? Kind of like that, where their word carries a lot of weight. Some countries straight up fucking hate the Aes Sedai, and they don't even let women who can channel do magic legally. But even their king will be like, "Oh shit, they don't want me to invade my neighbor. Ah, fuck. All right, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll do something different." So that's kind of fun. But then, like I said, there's that infighting that they have that is interesting. It's not like horrible, but sometimes they focus a little too long on it. Not just in this book, but like there's some books where it's like that's like the central theme, and it gets a little overkill sometimes.